Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Well, hello and welcome to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and today I've got a very special guest. His name is Jason Grenninger, and this guy's got a wealth of credentials, but certified surgical technologist, a medical profession in the operating room for 36 years. He's a plant alchemist, as many of us are, and he was able to learn about RSO. So for those of you listeners know anything about cannabis medicine, RSO is a full spectrum whole plant extract that many of us use to help a lot of people doing a lot of things. Um, and, you know, this guy has seen all sorts of problems, has had um, a battle with non-Hodgkin's leukemia, metastasized, all the bad things, and he's been working through it. But now he's working on a project, and this is something near and dear to my heart. Anybody who knows me, I've been a cannabis advocate and activist for almost 40 years, and I've been locked up and helped other people. And sometimes it feels like lifetimes ago, but it never left. I'm not in the trenches the way I was, but my heart's still there. And he's with a group called Coalition for Patients' Rights. And this is something that I could not agree with more. You know, with the Human Solution International, our motto was no one should go to jail for a plant. And beyond that, and it was really that simple. Like people go, well, what about the coca plant? What about the other plant? There's no plant that should get any person locked up. You know, you can abuse a lot of things, but that doesn't make the plant, you know, a criminal act. And cannabis especially, it never killed a single person to date. That can be directly attributed and correlated to the cannabis plant. You know, it's helped a lot of people. Frankly, it doesn't necessarily help everybody the way they want to be helped, but neither does anything. And I think it's important for us to be realistic about this. But most importantly, we have laws on the book that say cannabis is one of the most dangerous substances known to man, is highly likely to be abused, and is highly addictive. And these are all things that are just not true. And I believe, and Jason believes, that we should just repeal these laws, not doing the things that are happening right now, like talking about rescheduling and making something a Schedule 3 drug. It's not going to be helpful. So, Jason, without me commandeering this conversation, I sure want to hear what you have to say. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
I appreciate you very much, and thanks for having me. Yeah, it's a big deal now with the deschedule because it's people don't necessarily realize what that all is going to entail. And just for the fact that pharma wants to make some products for themselves to put into the system through providers and access through pharmacy, well, they can do that under any schedule, including no schedule.
Exactly.
For example, willow tree bark is how you get aspirin.
Yep.
So if you can grow your willow trees and you can have willow tree bark, but once you start making a product and consenting it to people, well, now you have to have licensing and product. And so the system's already in place to handle a plant and for us to have a plant. And the problem is Schedule 3, if they do that, it's actually a recriminalization. Every adult use and dispensary will be closed.
Yes.
I know it's painful to hear, and I didn't want to believe it at first, but after you dive into it a little bit, every statute that's written in every state that has managed to create use around Schedule 1. Those laws are for Schedule 1, not Schedule 3. So as soon as it goes to Schedule 3, all of those laws and statutes are worth nothing. They're valueless. There's no substance to that. And they're putting cannabis into the Schedule 3 box. They are not changing the box that is Schedule 3. And you can only get a Schedule 3 through a licensed provider, through a current prescription, and through a pharmacy, or it is illegal and you are a criminal. And
So
you
why don't
cannot
you give us
share
an
a Schedule 3.
example?
Go ahead.
of a Schedule 3 drug. So we can really put side by side what the box they're trying to put cannabis into.
Yeah. For example, things with codeine or some various other things. I think all of those Schedule 3 items is called control. Its schedule is CSA, stands for controlled substances. It's a
Correct.
control level 3. So it's a control and criminalization at level 3.
Right.
So anyone that has it on them without a current prescription is a criminal now. Anyone who passes it to someone else is a criminal now. And those are a little bit of a problem we're finding, trying to look at the patient data we've looked at for all these years. Because Coalition for Patient Rights is also part of Compassion Center. And they're the ones that have put together a petition that we're putting forth. I did put the link in your chat there.
And we're going to put that in the show notes. The podcast itself is a audio file, but we have show notes that have the whole thing, so we're going to put that in there.
Excellent. And the petition itself is nice, but it doesn't have that much legal background. We'd love you to sign it. But what's really on that petition that's important is there's access links to Pamela Bondi, our Attorney General. There's access link to Robert F. Kennedy, our Secretary, Human Services, Health and Human Services, and to the President, our representatives, our senators. If you contact them, you're going to make a lot more difference than signing a petition that doesn't have a lot of legal value to it. Because unless it's a registered petition within each state and each process, and it's specifically,
right, we're not
a different level.
trying to create legislation. We're trying to uncreate some legislation.
Exactly. Through awareness and what's going on here. And the thing we need to tell, Pamela Bondi is we're going to recriminalize all of these people. We also have a generation of people now that have been introduced and happy with adult use and social use. And let's face it, they never had to allegedly manage it in an illegal market. And they're at risk. Our workforce is at risk. Our youth is at risk by criminalizing cannabis again, which is one of the other.
It would really have a huge effect that's not really expected. What you just pointed out is important. We came from a generation where everything was illegal, and I was allegedly growing cannabis out in the woods, before we had our medical law. So everything was illegal, and you didn't, you had to know somebody who knew somebody before I'd even talk to you. It was, we were very careful, and nowadays nobody thinks twice about anything. And you try to explain that there's people still locked up in prison today, and people are still getting put in prison today. Not so many as used to be, but there's still plenty. And I spent almost 20 years, working with inmates, cannabis inmates, and helping some get out and at least giving them, some refuge. And you talk about that today, and people look at you like you're crazy. Like they just don't even accept it. I could go to the store. You drive down to any freeway and you see billboards with giant pot leaves on them. And it makes you feel like it's just no big deal.
Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting is in Las Vegas here, where I'm at in Nevada, Las Vegas, I've gone into a couple of dispensaries to talk to some managers and say, hey, you realize this is going to close if Schedule 3 happens.
Yeah, they don't.
And they're like, oh, no. Well, that's the argument, I guess. Like, oh, we can operate under Schedule 1. We can definitely operate under Schedule 3.
Right.
And they don't realize that is not the case at all. Schedule 3 is a very specific control that is extraordinarily well established in its system. Yeah. Schedule 1 is a you can't touch it, go away, empty box.
Exactly.
Schedule 3 has got tons of structure and everything built around it. And they're not changing those things.
Well, not only that, the pharma companies make billions of dollars working within that schedule. So there are gigantic corporation entities that know their way through all the rigmarole. And if anybody's going to exist, like we talked the other day, and you were mentioning, what is it, Epidiolex or you
The
know,
Pidalex, yeah.
yeah, there's a handful
The Drovadinol.
of Marinol I think it's generic now. They've got some different names for it, but
Mhm.
I mean, at the end of the day, there's a handful of cannabis-based prescription drugs that have gone through that system, but literally a handful, and
Yeah.
not anything that you can drink or smoke or there's I think one of them's an infused oil, and one of them's a pill, and that's it. Like that's all there is, and that's not what cannabis users are familiar with or would accept, or it's just it would turn everything completely upside down.
Well, I've been, since I've been in this, I'm sort of on the medical side, so doing research, because to me, it's all about the data. I can make whatever I think I can make, but until the data actually tells me something, I haven't done squat.
Agreed.
And we're all just jerking off until we have the data. Oh, it worked. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. What's your data? What's your
placebo
mechanism of
works
action?
too,
Dive
and
into it. And once you find that, then dive in, find your mechanism of action and get the real science done, which
100%.
is what we're up to. But the problem with this is it's natural.
Right.
Natural remedies have a different feel, different energy to them. Pharmaceutical products are made very specific because they have to know every single molecule that's there, and there can be no molecule that's there that they don't know about. And
Yes.
so almost every medicine, and I can go to the anesthesia cart and look at any medicine in there and say, well, they're this, pull this up. And most of it is up at most to like 5% of something,
Right.
maybe 1% or 5 milligrams or 10 milligrams. So it's a pure molecule in chalk. Every bit of it
Yeah,
is pure molecules in chalk. So they know exactly what they
exactly.
have. Those are the rules they established to work within that zone. And as a surgical tech and operating room for 36 years, I appreciate those medicines.
Sure.
You need to know that level of medicine you're dealing with when you're putting someone unconscious and chopping their bones up, and know exactly what that CC is there and what's not there. It's very harsh to our bodies.
Yes.
It's hard on our bodies. Our bodies don't like pure molecules like that.
Right.
And we all know that from experiencing medicine. And I got a question. How many people do you know that have ever been on the F-Pedalex or Drobanol or Marinol and switched and went to say, I want plant and had better relief just from going to natural?
Hi, this is Joe Grumbine, and I wanted to share an update. The platform that hosts this podcast has made some changes to the subscriber settings, and we have a number of subscriber-only episodes that we offer to the supporters. And for a minimum of $3 a month, we can get you signed up. And if you're already signed up and you're having some kind of trouble locating these episodes in the other platforms, I would say maybe the best answer is to unsubscribe and then resubscribe. I'm sorry for the hassle. I don't have any way to make a change, but I'm very grateful for all the support. Thank you. I think I've known only a couple of people that ever had those prescriptions.
Mhm.
And the only reason why they had those prescriptions is they were terrified of being arrested. And the second they had an opportunity to get the whole plant, they took it.
Yes, because it works so much better, and
Yes,
it's more efficacious to us. Our body. I mean, food is medicine. That's how we live, by
exactly.
eating medicine, food, and moving forward. And yeah, and the thing is if they do deschedule the way it's listed now, they're talking about the Schedule 3 when they introduced it. They're talking about putting the plant in Schedule 3, not
Right.
the derivatives that pharma makes from it, but the plant back in there again, which
Yeah.
is an abuse of the system in the first place on a plant, because that's not how it was built in the first place
Pharmacies
to
don't
work.
grow plants. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the other huge thing, because it's pharma. If they wanted to use the plant and take out extract single molecules, it's a lot of work.
Right.
They're actually making cannabinoids right now with bacteria
Yeah.
and yeast.
Yeast. Yeah.
They're actually using E. coli bacteria
Yeah.
which is the bacteria that if you get in contact with, you end up getting diarrhea because someone, it's a
Yeah.
fecal exposure, and you get diarrhea if you get access to that. That is the actual bacteria they're using to create cannabinoids
Mhm.
in vats. And the problem with those is if they work great, fine, but they don't.
Right.
They are a mirror image of the molecule. It's
Mhm.
not nature's kitchen. You can't
Exactly.
repeat nature's kitchen. When you start playing with it, you'll get the molecule, you get the right amount of atoms, but they're not in the same exact shape or configuration or even a mirror. So when it hits our receptors, it's a key.
Right.
And the key opens the receptor differently. It doesn't quite work. Have you heard of people having psychotic episodes from
Right.
synthetic THC in the past?
Mhm.
What happens is that synthetic THC, because the key is different, goes into that receptor, and instead of just being an agonist to 70% or 60%, it opens that door 100%, locks it open.
Right.
It's never supposed to work like that.
No,
That's a
no.
pure molecule that's not right, that's messing with us. And that's the type of things that are already showing not to be very efficacious with what has already been done pharmaceutically with cannabis.
Well, I think what people don't realize about plant medicines in general is most plants that are used medicinally have numbers of compounds, and they could be, all different types of compounds from aromatics to um, I mean, alkaloids too. I mean, there's so many different types of
Mhm.
active ingredients. But what generally happens with a plant is they've got a mixture of these ingredients, and some of them offset the negative effects of the others in such a way that you get an overall positive benefit and very little overall negative benefit. And when you
Yeah.
start concentrating things to, you know, more of one and eliminating or less of another, all of a sudden you get, and they talk about, the entourage effect and all of that. Well, that's a real thing. The only problem is we don't understand all the parts. There's too
Yeah.
many parts that we don't know about, and we don't know what they do, and in the configuration they're in, with the
Mhm.
concentrations that they're in, with all these different things. It's as much of an art as it is a science, and that's where the pharma companies can't be involved.
No. And for example of what you're just saying, I don't know if you can see this that well. You can see
Oh
all them
yeah,
little
yeah,
bars.
yeah, yeah.
Basically, what this is showing is that they did 12 concentrates against 12 cancers.
Okay,
And each one of these is a cancer. This is two lung cancers.
got
This is
it.
two stomach cancers. And the 12 concentrates, any bar that's over 50% there actually killed 50% of the cells in 24 hours
There you go.
without touching healthy cells. But let's look at the numbers here. If you've got prostate PC3 cancer, you have a 1 in 12 shot of getting that out of 12 concentrates, maybe helping you. And that's assuming it's made right. And a lot of it's not made right.
Right.
Um, if you have the prostate LNCAP cell type cancer, there's one, two, three different cannabis plants but that's still we got a 1 in 4 chance now.
There you go.
So there's so many aspects of it where we see that it can fail when we say, "Oh, just take this, just do that," because
Right.
these are different strains and different. The 12 are different strains, and some are high CBD, some are high THC. They
Mhm.
kind of evened it out. If you got this colon cancer, you had one, two, three, four, five, six of them actually do a reasonably good job.
Mhm.
Yeah, but that's if you had SW480 cell type. If you've
Exactly.
got HT29, they have never found a cannabis to hit that one,
Mhm.
at least so far in the research.
I
But
just dealt with a squamous cell carcinoma, HPV
mhm,
driven, and the cannabis didn't help. And all
yeah,
the oil I've made for all these people over all the years, and I took my own oil, and it turned out it was blocking my own immune system from seeing the cancer cells. And I had an integrative oncologist that recognized that and was
hmm
able to show me a study that backed it up. And I says, well, I guess I
hmm
can go another route. And it
yeah,
helped me deal with the nausea later on, and it helped me in ways, but not people think that there's these silver bullet answers that blanket everything, and it's not. It's just not.
yeah. But you got to admit, 6 different ones can take out a cancer. I mean, look at all these cancers that have been affected. It's still random. It's still
Exactly.
crazy. But we see the truth here. All those people that and all the stories. Oh, this one was healed. Well, this one wasn't. Well,
Yeah,
that's because this same strain that worked, every time it works, it's gone again. Why?
right.
The plant regrows. Is it grown the same way? Did it have the same nutrients? Did it get the same
Exactly.
sunlight? Did it get this?
So
Yeah,
many variables.
exactly. There's so
Yes.
much to it. And until you're really tracking the data on it
Yeah,
and the outcomes of consumption, you're kind of doing a lot of this.
a lot of it.
I'm
Exactly.
sorry. Yeah.
And the good news is, again, you're dealing with a relatively safe plant that, for the most part, unless you beat somebody over the head with a bale of it or make a rope out of it and hang them, it's really hard to hurt somebody with this plant. So you might not get the result you want, and many times you probably won't, but you're not going to have an adverse side effect that's going to leave somebody paralyzed or with organ failure, and then a lot of the other drugs that are, you know, legal single molecule drugs do that.
Hmm.
So even just by its own nature, the relative safety of a compound, whether it's a plant or some mixture of things, it's like, well, that's got to be considered. And that's one of the considerations, I believe, in how they schedule things. And scheduling goes all the way up to what, 5 or 6 or something like that.
I think five is they were thinking of making a Schedule 6 for
Okay.
cannabis, which isn't that bad an idea, but why reinvent the wheel completely?
Well,
Um,
FDA has a category that they call GRAS, which is kind of an interesting acronym because it means generally regarded as safe. And there
mhm.
are compounds in that category that are actually not all that necessarily safe. I think MSG's in that category, and there's a lot of compounds that can have toxic effects, but they're
It's true.
generally regarded as safe. And cannabis,
Yeah.
I think that's where it belongs, if it belongs anywhere.
Exactly. It fits every rule of Gross, and and there's even a self-designation within the rules on making something Gross, and part of that is pointing out as long as it was been used up until say 1953 and shown to be normal, it's okay. We got 2,000 years of experience with this plant
Exactly.
that we can point out was efficacious and useful, and part of our animal feed and part of our own feed. We got it through our animals in the past. We used to feed this to our cows, our pigs. We used to get this medicinally through our meats and dairies. We
Mhm.
took that away
Right.
from ourselves, and we did that for a lot longer, 10 times longer in our history than we had it taken away from us. There's some that
Exactly.
believe that some of the sickness we have is the cause and effect of doing that to our endocannabinoid system, because that's the other biggest component to all of this that I love to bring up first if I get into legislation. So let's put things into perspective before we start. Your body makes 150 endogenous cannabinoids. This
Exactly.
plant concentrate has been shown to make up 144 of the exact same phytocannabinoid keys, and they are all uh, neuro, they're retroactive to the nucleus in the cell to create change from the nucleus out. There are copies of our own keys to a system that's made to manage our equilibriums, from diet to pain to sleep to many other components of our bodies, even our organ equilibriums. So there is a symbiosis with this that is just amazing. Because I got to tell you, when I was first asked to do this, and people said, "Oh, yeah, people curing cancer with cannabis," I said, "You're smoking too much pot." And then they're like, "Oh no, there's this oil thing," and I dove into it, and I read about the ECS, and I dove into the ECS a little bit, and I'm like, there is an extraordinarily valid reason for those,
Exactly.
not a panacea, but as it being able to affect an adult in many systems, depending on which plant you're using. Well, this one might
The
help your
thing
diet. Well, this one might help your
is
this.
there's
Yeah.
multiple mechanisms that happens, and one of them is, some of the cannabinoids actually go after the mutated cells, but just the ECS alone, your body is designed to destroy and reuse mutated cells. Like that's part of our,
Mhm.
autophagy and apoptosis is all about us getting rid of broken cells. And
Yeah.
it's part of our, our human existence. And the ECS, like you say, it's a regulatory system. And as far as I know, I don't think they still teach it in the primary curriculum of medical school. And it's a functional system in the human body. It's a physiological system that they don't extensively teach about.
No, and working in surgery, I've had the pleasure to even talk to several doctors. Oh, were you taught anything about the ECS? No. Did you know there's an entire system for that? But here's the fun part. Every one of us, even as low as basic text and process, we're taught about the CB receptors.
Yeah,
And then there's this and it's that for this, but they didn't tell us that stood for cannabinoid.
exactly.
CB has
Well,
always stood for
for other
cannabinoid.
things too, they
Exactly.
recognize they're there, but they don't recognize it's amazing thing they do. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
we just got to thank Meshulam and those people that got research to Meshulam, you know, including some throughout. Those that helped, get a lot of this started.
well,
For
that's the
example,
only thing that I see that would be good about rescheduling it instead of where it sits right now is that it would open the door to research. And I don't think of any other thing that would be good about it, but that's the only thing that, when they chose Schedule One, Nixon knew what he was doing. He was a conniving son of a bitch. He knew what he was doing, and when you put something in Schedule One, there's not a place for medical research, and they've had some quasi research going on in what University of Mississippi, and they've done a little bit of this and that, but it's not it's not the type of research that pharma companies do on compounds by even the smallest stretch.
very true. In fact, I understood he did some research that actually proved it worked and ignored it. But
Exactly. That
that's
came
another
up
story we
shortly
don't need to
after.
get into. Yeah,
They threw it
yeah,
right out the door. Exactly.
yeah. Like that. Yeah, let's prove it kills him. Oh, it healed him.
Yeah.
Let's forget
Yeah.
about that.
Throw that all in away.
That
Yeah,
happened. That did happen.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, listen, let's talk about money down. Never get a big yellow dog if you want to have a conversation with somebody. Anyways, this is a call to action as much as an
Yeah.
informational conversation. And I think that we can go on. You and I are a bunch of geeks when it comes to this, and we could go
Hmm.
on forever because it's powerful science and it's interesting and important and it
Hmm.
affects everybody. But we don't have 3 years to have that conversation. What we do have is a call to action, and you have a petition that is going to be featured in the show notes, so anybody can click on that link and
Hmm.
and go after it. But like we just said before, petitions of this nature are symbolic. They're kind of like a UN resolution, where we got a powerfully worded response that we're. But if enough people acknowledge it, it does carry some weight. It lets the powers that be know that, wow, this many people, you know, have an opinion like this, and it could turn into something. But beyond that, you've got some instruction or some hopes that people are going to take their own action, and this is really where activism comes in, is people acting, doing something.
Actually, yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you would love to see come out of this?
I'd love to see people, contacting their attorney general. According to 811A rules for changing anything within that schedule, uh, Pamela Bondi, attorney general, has the authority to instigate that hearing or change. The Secretary of Youth and Health Services, Robert F. Kennedy, has the ability to instigate that change. Another group that presents also has the ability to ask for that, and right now it's getting put together and being asked for by Compassion Center. It's established in 2001. We got 25 years of federally recognized patient care delivery, over 15,000 U.S. patients. We're the oldest federally recognized cannabis patient delivery care in this country, and we're operating in 18 states. We're in partnership with Stormy Ray Cardholders Foundation, Canalogics Foundation Research Institute, CFRI, Integrated Providers Association, which provides education, and we've built AMA credits for doctors and other providers on cannabis and psilocybin and other things, and Center for Incubation Findings and Research, and of course, Coalition for Patient Rights. And there's also a Pardon Me Please in there. But it's also about getting people to take that action, like you said. And the reason we're putting together that so we can put together a proposal so it's going to all of them at once. We're even sending it to Trump. Like, here, RFK, here is a full, we're giving him analysis, which you have to have for a deschedule process. We're giving the 8-point analysis that we've made. We're giving them the data. We're giving the information. We're putting it to Pamela Bondi to say, hey, we just gave all the information to HHS. They've got this. We're giving it to her. Why don't you talk to him? Have him talk to you. They get together to make this happen, because they all have the ability to do it. And there's no reason it shouldn't be in front of them and asked for. And that's one of the things we're putting together to submit, so that we have a full authoritative, properly structured ask within 811A structure for changing deschedule, so we can actually move this hearing forward and make it happen. And people contacting Pamela Bondi, RFK, Trump, and believe it or not, those are all the exact same page at whitehouse.gov contact. So if you go to Pamela Bondi, contact Pamela Bondi, you click that, it goes over to White House contact. You do RFK, it goes there too. So you just say, dear this, dear that, and please deschedule this. This is not fair. And tell that you only need a couple sentences, but tell your story if you want to as well. We're going to put up some text within the petition within a few days so that people can just cut and paste. That way, I want to make it easy.
That's wise. If you can make it easy for people to take an action, they're more likely to take that action.
Yeah. Right now, you can just say, I want this plant descheduled. And enough people just saying that is enough. Say, you don't have to tell me all the reasons. Just get rid of it.
That's it. Exactly. Yeah. Let your will be known. The government that we have is supposed to honor the will of the people. That's the whole idea. They don't always do it, but they're supposed to. And I think they don't always do it because we're not busy telling them what our will is more often than not.
That's a good point. Or standing up for that will in a way that is not shooting ourselves in the foot.
Exactly. And this is a way to take action that, I'm a huge proponent of peaceful protests. I've led and participated in many, many protests, but I think today they don't carry the weight that they have in the past. There's so many things that have I don't know, tarnished the notion of what a peaceful protest represents and who's actually involved, and people getting paid and all the crazy stuff that happens today that maybe didn't happen 20, 30, 50 years ago in the same way. I think these other actions are as important, if not maybe more important, because they're not, you become numb. I think our leadership has become largely numb to the standard peaceful protest. It doesn't, we don't get enough people together to be meaningful. Go to some other countries, they'll put 150,000 people together in the streets and block things up for a good long while, get their point across. Or you go,
but they're also awareness too. There's awareness, there's education, there's access.
Exactly.
In Indonesia, they raised, I think, the tuition, right, $2 or $10 or something. They had a march of everyone there saying this ain't going to happen.
Exactly.
And they raised our tuition and doubled it, and nobody got under their tree at the quad. It's just crazy.
Exactly. You got farmers dumping trailers of shit on the front doors of the legislation, and that sends a message. I'm not saying we should dump trailers of shit, but we can at least take this peaceful, thoughtful action that is clear and not fringe. When the more crazy we get, the less they take us seriously. We're just crazy people doing crazy things. This is something that reasonable people do when they're trying to make something happen. And I just think I've always been kind of like another petition, whatever. I mean, unless you can, like in California, we have a ballot initiative. So if you get enough petitions, you can put something on a ballot and get voted on. That doesn't mean it's going to go through, even if it gets voted on, but at least you got a shot. But there's
Yeah.
places, so many places in the country, and there's not a national ballot initiative. There isn't such a thing. So if you want to actually change something on a federal level, it's got to go through a process, whether it's submitting a bill into Congress and going through those processes, or like you found these other alternative ways. I didn't realize that there were other ways besides submitting a bill, through the regular channels. So I'm learning as we're going as well.
Okay. Yeah, because you can have them both try to instigate that hearing, and with that, and like I said, we're trying to put together a nice professional package to everyone so that they have it in hand, and we can say, hey, Compassion Center was here. We're here representing 15,000 patients and over 26 years of research and care delivery, and we're here to say, and if you don't want to hear our voice, you write down we were here, which is what we did
Exactly.
last December. I was there in December, December 2nd, for the Schedule 3 hearing when it started. They
Nice.
didn't want to hear my testimony, mostly because they knew what I was going to say, because they ask you what you're going to say when you asked to provide testimony.
Right.
And part of that is I was going to bring up the patent that HHS has on Alzheimer's and dementia and neurological healing with cannabinoids. And they've had that patent since 1999. Have you known anybody since 1999 suffering from Alzheimer's that could have used that?
Oh, a lot of folks.
My father.
Yeah,
I
a
know.
lot of
So
folks. I know
so
people today that could use
it's
that.
it's known to help, and they've known it, and they've had the proof since 1999. They've had the patent since 99, so they had the proof before that. And so I'd like to point out, the HHS is over the FDA and over these groups, and yet they say this is non-efficacious when you hold a patent otherwise.
Right.
And so that's the type of thing. But the other thing I wanted to point out in this is when they did the comments for Schedule 3, they got more response than they've ever gotten. The FDA's never gotten that much response. And you
Wow.
know what? Overwhelmingly, 70% was for descheduling. We've
Nice.
already spoken on their platform. They've
Nice.
got the data. We just have to say, open your folder and look at it,
Yeah.
because it's already there. The people have spoken on this already. So that's another thing we kind of, it's already there. You've already asked for this and you got your answer.
I love it. I love it. Well, Jason, we're pushing the boundaries of
Yeah.
time and space here, but
Yep.
um, like I said, I figured we were gonna. There's so much to talk about,
Yep.
but I'd like to direct people. If you could consolidate all these things that we just talked about into a central thought to leave our listeners with. There's people listening to this podcast that don't know anything about cannabis, and they're going, "Wow, I didn't realize." What would you leave them with?
Um, that if there is so much potential there, as you just heard, and there's a lot of research still needs to be done, and some of it's still not being made right. But at the same time, without that opportunity to drive forward with that, we lose it all. And we also criminalize our youth. So unless we step forward, take action, and ask for this to be descheduled, we're really hurting our next generation and ourselves and the planet. So yeah, there's a lot to this. We haven't even gone into how hemp can replace paper and
Oh,
remediate soil and does
gonna
all
have
these
to
other
have
things.
you
That's
come
to
back.
heal the planet. But we'd have 5 more conversations on why this is
Exactly.
beneficial.
Yeah.
But
No, we'll have
but
to have you back. We've got a lot more to talk about, but
my
for this
pleasure.
purpose of directing people to this petition, why don't you
Hmm.
give the name of the petition? The link will be in the show notes of the
Hmm.
podcast, and we'll share that around. But what's the name of the petition if somebody just wants to look it up?
Well, they're going to have to get the link. We do have one at
Okay.
change.org, which
Okay.
is sort of a support petition.
Right.
Because you're responsible for pushing it, whether you put it there or not. That's just a
Right.
platform. Well, I can make a petition, so it's not a
For
problem.
sure.
We'd rather handle it ourselves. So the name on it is Deschedule
Okay.
Cannabis Petition Compassion Center CPR with
Got it.
dashes. and that search might find it. The I think it's listed the same way, Compassion Center and Cannabis Petition at change.org. I can find, I'll get you that link as well. So
Yeah,
we've got,
yeah. Email
it's
that to
actually, it's on
me.
our
It'll
petition.
be a few days before we get this published, but when we do, I'll make sure
Mhm.
to put all those links up in there, make sure that everything's working.
Okay. And I believe we do have a link on there to the change.org petition
Okay.
to sign. I know it's on that one to get them to go to ours. So that
Well,
it, you know,
cross-link
with each other.
everything and give them good information, give them the
Yeah.
links to the White House, like you were saying, and you make it easy for them. You know,
Yes.
we were supporting, I don't know, it was 10, 15 years ago, there was a bill going through HR 1523, I think it was, and it was it was a bill to it was like 4 lines, and it just gave states the right to do their own. They could opt out of control of Schedule One if they wanted to. It was so simple and beautiful, and it could have easily opened those doors, and it died 100 times, and finally never got reenacted. But we were trying back then. It was like a good 15 years ago. Well,
Well, it's time to do it again.
yeah, exactly. That's the thing is we don't let up. We keep going. This is important. You know, I have kids and grandkids. My kids rallied in support when I was going through trial. My grandkids were there. They were only 2, 3 years old. Now they're teenagers. Now my
Mhm.
grandson's using cannabis, and I think to myself, you know, I wonder if he understands the work and the sacrifices that have been made and really what's at stake going on.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm going to reach out.
That's the other thing. We turn our back on a lot of legacy that's pushed a lot of this forward if we let this fall back into criminalization of Schedule 3. So much, so many people have died to move this forward.
So
It would
many
be a
sacrifices.
shame. It'd be
Yeah,
such a shame to let that fail.
agreed. Well, Jason, this has been a extraordinary conversation. I like talking to people who know what they're saying. It's a lot of activists are good at throwing some words around, but they don't necessarily understand what they mean. You clearly do, and I respect and honor that, and would love to have you back to go deeper into some of this stuff. But right now, let's get this petition to be known and recognized, and get some signatures out there, and get some communication with our legislators and our representatives, and
Mhm.
you know, the leadership that's supposed to be leading. Let's show them what to do.
That's right. Yeah. It's just like you said, you know, do we tell them what we want? Uh, that's an important part of it.
We tell them, we show them, and we tell them again.
That's right. All
Awesome.
right.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining us today.
Namaste.
This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and I want to thank all of the listeners that make this show possible, and we will see you next time.
Right.
This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. We produce this show so that people can share their stories, people that have overcome obstacles, people that are undergoing obstacles. We're building a community of health-minded individuals. If you're interested in supporting the show, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to it on. If you're interested in becoming a guest, please send an email to itsjoegrumbine@gmail.com, or you can send a note into the notes section of the podcast. All right. Well, thank you for supporting this show, and we hope you've enjoyed it.